The following podcast is a deep, shallow dive production.
And you're going to love it.
Okay, let's go.
Hey, what's happening, everybody? Happy Friday. Hope everybody had a good week. All right, man, I got a bunch of really good things to talk about today, and might be a little bit longer of an episode, but that's okay, because you have all weekend to listen to it. You can break it up into 2 segments if needed. Although, who knows, maybe it won't end up being that long. Anyway, all right, let's start off with a little more talk about, what has really gripped the country to an extent, and it's this Luigi Mangione situation and all that. Oh man, this thing has really turned into, God, like everything, turned into something so much bigger and deeper than just what's on the surface. Let me start off by saying, again, I'm going to try and add a little nuance to this and also just look at it from, obviously every side and the 30,000 foot perch that I like to try to do and all that. But again, you can't kill a CEO for his shitty company and denials and all that. I think if you ask that as a yes or no question, does the CEO of United Healthcare deserve to die because United Healthcare had a, twice as much or 2 times the denial rate of the industry? United Healthcare probably is responsible for, many thousand more deaths than Luigi Mangione is, which is 1. Does that CEO deserve to die? No, I'm sorry. You just can't do that. You just can't. That vigilante justice is it's too discretionary. You know what I mean? And it's too arbitrary if you're going to say, hey, if you have a shitty company or a company that has, doing terrible things to thousands, if not more people, it's just too arbitrary. You can't give that a pass. You know what I mean? Like that's gonna plunge us into anarchy. So that I just have to make sure I say that. Now, with that being said, okay, man, this thing has really kind of caused such a stir. And I will say there's a cartoon graphic that I saw, and I'm going to describe it to you because I think it makes sense. In the top part, the top of the cartoon graphic, it says murder. And there's a guy in a suit on the ground. He's bleeding. He's gotten shot. And then next to him, or 2 feet away from him, is a cartoon graphic of a guy with a hood on and basically shooting a gun. So basically it's like Brian Thompson laying down. He's been shot. Luigi Mangione is 2 feet away with a gun. So again, it's a cartoon and it says murder, right? And then below it, it says also murder. And then this image has a CEO looking guy surrounded by a bunch of money sitting behind a desk. The desk says UHC, which obviously is United Healthcare. And then there's a big sign on the desk that says denied. And then laying down on the ground is a person that looks like they've died, and they're holding in their hand life savings medicine claim. So again, murder, also murder. I thought that cartoon really captured the essence of what people are pissed off about more than anything. And again, I just don't think you can justify his murder, but you do have to try and understand it, okay? So let me play something for you. If you follow me or are connected with me on Instagram and Facebook, you actually saw this come to light, but I mean, this is a little bit of AI dorkiness, coolness. But I took the mugshot of Luigi Mangione, like the graphic image, and I took that into a program called CapCut, and then I guess they found a copy of what they're saying is his manifesto. It's like a 265 word, statement that he had on him. And so I took that manifesto, which I found on this guy, Ken Klippenstein's Substack, and I took that into 11 Labs. All right. I've done that before. I've played for you guys audio from 11 Labs before, but this is pretty wild. So in another program called CapCut, which is owned by the same company, ByteDance, that owns TikTok, I took his photo, that photo of his mugshot, I uploaded that into CapCut. And then I uploaded the audio track from 11 Labs, and then they have a feature where it makes it lip sync. It basically brings the still graphic photo to life as if it's talking. It's pretty cool, actually. It'll probably be on my personal Instagram, but it's definitely on the Deep Shallow Dive Instagram if you wanted to see what that looks like. I mean, it's pretty, the technology and the AI is pretty wild that they're able to, basically bring a photograph almost to life as if it's talking. But let me play this for you. This was Luigi Mangione's alleged 265-word manifesto.
To the feds, I'll keep this short because I do respect what you do for our country. To save you a lengthy investigation, I state plainly that I wasn't working with anyone. This was fairly trivial. Some elementary social engineering, basic CAD, a lot of patience. The spiral notebook, if present, has some straggling notes and to-do lists that illuminate the gist of it. My tech is pretty locked down because I work in engineering, so probably not much info there. I do apologize for any strife of traumas, but it had to be done. Frankly, these parasites simply had it coming. A reminder, the US has the #1 most expensive healthcare system in the world, yet we rank roughly number 42 in life expectancy. United is the largest company in the US by market cap, behind only Apple, Google, Walmart. It has grown and grown, but as our life expectancy? No, the reality is, these have simply gotten too powerful, and they continue to abuse our country for immense profit because the American public has allowed them to get away with it. Obviously, the problem is more complex, but I do not have space, and frankly, I do not pretend to be the most qualified person to lay out the full argument. But many have illuminated the corruption and greed, e.g., Rosenthal Moore, decades ago, and the problems simply remain. It is not an issue of awareness at this point, but clearly power games at play. Evidently, I am the first to face it with such brutal honesty.
So basically, he's calling out really the profit and corporate mindset that absolutely does exist, especially in healthcare in the United States. And so, this whole thing is becoming a bigger issue. It's almost reminding me of the Occupy Wall Street movement from, I don't know when that was, 2009 maybe. I don't remember too much about that. I'll have to research that. But again, I remember the Occupy Wall Street movement being basically, the lesser fortunate, sort of saying, hey, enough is enough and stop ripping us off to an extent. I think that was in regards to the housing crisis of 2008 and then probably stock related things. Again, I'll have to look that up and I'll totally remember that. But here, again, it's almost becoming class warfare. In a way, it's becoming a little bit generational. I think I talked about this before, maybe Gen X siding on one side versus, Gen Z on this one. There is a left versus right element to it now I'm seeing. But again, I don't think it's all about that. I actually think people are trying to make it left versus right, where fundamentally this is not necessarily left versus right. All right, so needless to say, content creators have had a field day with creating their takes on the Luigi Mangione stuff. Man, it is really insane. But here's a gal that I like. Give a listen to what she says.
Luigi Mangione, the alleged killer of United Healthcare CEO Brian Thompson, wanted to send a message even louder than this message, though, was the public response. Americans of all political ideologies and backgrounds came together to express their utter and complete disgust at a healthcare system that they experience as violent, which treats their lives as just as disposable as Mangione treated Brian Thompson's life. Their disgust, by the way, it's well-founded. Here in the U.S., we don't really have a healthcare system. We have a profit-maximizing, price-gouging system. Among wealthy nations, we spend more per capita than any other nation by a long shot. We also have the lowest life expectancy. New poll from Gallup shows that even before the CEO was slain, Americans were absolutely clamoring for a radical departure from the healthcare status quo. Gallup finds a new post-Obamacare high in support for the federal government guaranteeing a right to healthcare coverage. And yet, because there is so much money being made, so much cash flowing from those profits into the campaign coffers of D.C. politicians, healthcare reform has been all but abandoned as a national issue. If Democrats are actually serious about getting back into power and truly delivering for the nation, they will heed the message that was sent loud and clear this week and fight to cut these parasites off once and for all. By making our country more humane, they will save lives, including potentially the lives of a CEO or two.
All right, so that gal's name is Crystal Ball, and she's the host of a show called Breaking Points, which is actually a pretty good show. Anyway, so, fundamentally, God, I think I've said fundamentally a few times already, but the healthcare system in the United States is broken. It just is, and it hasn't gotten fixed. It didn't get fixed in 8 years of Obama. It didn't get fixed in 4 years of Trump, and it didn't get fixed in 4 years of Biden. So that's where we're at. Now, will it get fixed in the next 4 years of Trump? I mean, we'll see. We'll see. But I will tell you, another broken system is our food system and our, nutritional aspects, which we've talked about so many times. So now this is also another, really problem industry and a macro problem in this country, and it is starting to really, really gather steam. And what's funny about this is, honestly, this started with that brother and sister duo that went on Tucker Carlson, Casey and Callie Means. I really do have to give them credit for, I guess, maybe being the spark that ignited all this talk. And then from there, RFK Jr.'s been involved in a big way. And now it's starting to, permeate among Democrats, progressives, liberals, whatever other term outside of conservative Republicans you want to label people. It's starting to now spread. For example, Senator Cory Booker, who is a big time Democrat and a guy that I've rarely agreed anything with, he came out and said, hey, what RFK Jr. is talking about makes a lot of sense. And then you've got voices like Jon Stewart and Bernie Sanders, and I'm going to play this clip for you in a second. They're coming out, and obviously, it's pretty on brand for them to get on board with this. But listen to this clip. I wish this clip would have came out, a long time ago, but I am glad that this is something that's getting out there now.
Robert Kennedy says, ultra processed foods are killing Americans. And I'm like, yeah,
That's right.
God awful. That's got to change. But if you were to say that, boy, are you just dogpiled. How can you agree with Robert Kennedy Jr. on anything? He's this and that. And Elon Musk says we've got waste and inefficiency in the government. And we're like, yeah, we've been yelling about that for years. And as soon as you do that, how can you? How dare you? It's really interesting.
John, that is exactly what the challenge is. I'm holding a hearing as of today and for the next month. I am chairman of the Health Education Labor Committee. You know what I'm holding a hearing on tomorrow? To demand to know why the commissioner of the FDA has not, in fact, at least gone forward with strong labels to warn the American people about the nature of the food that they are eating, which is leading to obesity, which is leading to diabetes. We have been absolutely irresponsible. Kennedy is right on that issue.
So again, that was Jon Stewart and Bernie Sanders. And, the point Jon Stewart made and Bernie echoed is, there are still people, and there's a lot of people, that the fact that Robert F. Kennedy Jr. is the one who said it, they just, chalk it up as crazy. Oh, conspiracy theorists. Oh, anti-vaxxer, RFK Jr. I can't listen to anything he says. And again, guess what phrase I'm about to use? Judge the take. Judge the take. So, I'm glad Jon Stewart, whom, maybe Jon Stewart has been critical of RFK Jr. in the past. I think he has. Maybe Bernie Sanders has been critical of RFK Jr. in the past. I think he has. I know they've both been critical of Elon Musk. And so for them to come out and say, hey, RFK Jr. talks about, ultra processed foods being the root of, many health crises. He's right. So let's listen to that and let's put a plan in place to fix it. I mean, what's funny is if you think about it, the stuff they're talking about in terms of ultra processed food and what we take into our body, that then contributes to the healthcare, epidemic and the healthcare issues that companies like United Healthcare are then I can't even believe I said that. Choose to deny claims. It's really a kind of a wicked cycle. And the two of them are definitely, they're definitely, I guess, married to each other. They really are. And one could then, extrapolate that all the way out to, being the cause of what, or the impetus behind what, Luigi Mangione did and Brian Thompson losing his life for that. So anyway, I know that's a little bit of a stretch, kind of, I guess, connecting all of that stuff together. And obviously it's not a direct connection, but I think there is a tie to all that stuff. And, like I said, I do give credit to, let's say, Jon Stewart and Bernie Sanders for, putting their opinions about RFK Jr. or Elon Musk aside and judging the take and judging that, hey, there is waste, fraud, and abuse in our government. And the fact that Elon Musk and Vivek now are heading up this DOGE, this Department of Oversight for the government, and trying to drive all that out, we should all be supportive of that. Who cares if it's being headed up by Elon Musk and you don't like Elon Musk? If he really can drive out all the waste, fraud, and abuse, or even make a dent in that, and then that ends up lowering your taxes, that ends up, providing more money for government assistance to programs that are truly needed, we should all be happy about that, regardless of, who's championing that. All right, next clip. Adam Schiff, Senator Adam Schiff from California. I strung these three things together just to point out hypocrisy. I love pointing out hypocrisy. So this is Adam Schiff in hold on. Okay, the first clip is him in 2018. The next clip is him in 2019. And then the third clip is him about a week ago, 2024. All right, here's 2018.
On the day Donald Trump leaves office, the Justice Department may indict him.
Here's 2019.
Very strongly in favor of indicting the president when he is out of office.
So 2018 and 2019, he's basically talking about how he's strongly in favor of indicting Trump when he's out of office. And now there's been talk about a preemptive pardon for Fauci, Adam Schiff, Liz Cheney, and I think someone else. But basically, Adam Schiff is in Trump's crosshairs, and so there's talk about Biden giving him a preemptive pardon, which if he does, people are going to go absolutely berserk about that, because that's absolutely ridiculous to do a preemptive pardon. I mean, if that's not admitting you're guilty, I don't know what is. But there's talk about that preemptive pardon for Adam Schiff as part of that crew, and so listen to him now.
I don't think the incoming president should be threatening his political opponents with jail time. That's not the kind of talk we should.
So it got cut off. So obviously he's completely 180'd and saying, I don't think the incoming president should be threatening his political opponents with jail time, when literally that's exactly what he did. That, my friends, is hypocrisy at its finest. All right, next up, let me play this clip from this guy, James Lee. This guy's awesome, actually. I'm actually recording a podcast episode with him in the next week or so, which is going to be great. But this dude is solid, man. His Instagram is at 5149, the numbers 5149 James Lee. I'll put it in the show notes. Anyway, he does some amazing, citizen journalism, investigative journalism. He's great. And so if you guys didn't see, I was going to play this entire interview, but I listened to it and I decided it would just probably turn many of you off. Not that it would turn you off, but it wasn't that interesting. But Trump went on NBC on Sunday and did like a 1-hour interview on NBC, which I give him credit for. But he talked about a bunch of things. Again, I mean, I think people, I don't know if you guys would be up for listening to that entire thing. So instead, James honed in on one thing, which I think is super interesting. And again, it does play in with the rest of the things we've talked about this episode in terms of, ultra processed food, our healthcare system, the health crisis in America. So give this a listen.
Trump went on Meet the Press today and things got interesting.
Go back 25 years, autism was almost non-existent. It was, 1 out of 100,000, and now it's close to 1 out of 100. Well, I mean, what's happening?
No, it's actually 1 in 36. And what's happening? Well, this is what's happening. Autism spectrum disorder therapeutics market revenue to outreach $3.42 billion by 2030, increasing by 7.9% per year. What I mean is, this is not really a problem they necessarily want solved. And who is they? Well, one example would be Janssen Pharmaceuticals, which is J&J. And immunology is more than 1/5 of their total business. This has got to keep going up. You got to keep the shareholders happy. And I think that's why there's so much pushback for just asking questions, saying, hey, I see a problem here. I don't know what's causing this problem necessarily, but I want to find out what it is. And this is how we end up with really bad outcomes, because incentives always drive outcomes. And based on the current incentive structure, health is just not a problem that the pharmaceutical industry is prepared to solve.
He's really good. I'm looking forward to talking to him. But again, I mean, it makes complete dollars. Ha. See what I did there? Bad health makes dollars. It doesn't make sense. Well, no. Wait, hold on. I screwed that up. Good health makes sense, but it makes no dollars. Bad health makes dollars, but it makes no sense. You get what I'm saying. Give me a break. It's Friday. Okay. All right. So there's that. I will say, man, people are waking up to everything. And honestly, I've said this before and I'm going to say it again. I really attribute, I was going to say contribute. Man, I'm making a lot of mistakes today. I really attribute this major wake-up call to Gaza and what's taken place. I really do. I think that people have literally watched an actual genocide on their phones, and it's caused them to start to question everything. Anyway, all right, let's move on to a couple more topics. All right, you've probably heard about this. Give this a listen.
On Friday, Pentagon officials participating in a classified closed-door meeting with the House Oversight Committee. The topic reportedly centered around UFOs that have been flying over New Jersey.
For the past few weeks, residents of New Jersey spotting mysterious objects flying at night.
This is over my house right now. What is that?
Some close to a military installation. Others over President Trump's Bedminster Golf Club, raising alarm. The FAA restricting airspace. The FBI now investigating.
Oh my God, here we go. What is that?
Officials admitting they can't say for sure what the flying objects are, some saying they're the size of a small automobile. In a statement, a New Jersey police chief saying their presence appears nefarious in nature. The concerns reportedly being discussed behind closed doors on Capitol Hill Friday in a classified briefing between Pentagon officials and House Oversight Committee members.
All right, so a bunch of people are saying, oh, it's UFOs. You guys know how I feel about UFOs. I am the opposite of Joe Rogan and Tucker Carlson. I do not believe in UFOs. The other set of theories is that China and Iran have launched all these drones across the United States at nighttime. And so then people are like, why are we not shooting these down? You know, why is nothing happening? So give this a listen. This is a Republican lawmaker. I forget his name, but he's on Fox News. I will say the Republicans definitely want to take this in a certain direction. And that is pew, 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 pew. That's simulating warfare.
Objects in the sky that are the size of an SUV over any city, over any state, it's an invasion of our airspace. In focus now, Republican Congressman Jeff Van Drew of New Jersey, member of the House Judiciary Committee on the Hill right now. How do you address this at this point?
From very high sources, very qualified sources, very responsible sources, I'm going to tell you the real deal. Iran launched a mothership probably about a month ago that contains these drones. That mothership is off, I'm going to tell you the deal. It's off the east coast of the United States of America. They've launched drones, is everything that we can see or hear. And again, these are from high sources. I don't say this lightly.
This guy's such a clown. First of all, anybody that continues to pronounce it Iran, especially if they are in the government where it's not pronounced Iran, it's pronounced Iran, and anyone in the government should know that by now after 44 years. But anyway, he's such a clown. This is my favorite part, though.
Now, you know, we know there was a probability it could have been our own government. We know it's not our own government.
You know, I don't know if that was a Freudian slip, but he didn't say possibility. He said there's a probability that it's our own government.
Now, you know, we know there was a probability it could have been our own government. We know it's not our own government. It could have been some really glorified hobbyist or hobbyists that were doing something unbelievable. The third possibility was somebody, an adversarial country, doing this. The sources I have are good. They can't reveal who they are because they are speaking to me in confidentiality. The military is on alert with this.
All right, so one of my favorite things to do now when I watch videos like this is literally race to the comments, because the comments are gold these days in so many of these posts. So let me read a couple. This one says, if that's enemy drones, the U.S. defense is non-existent. Stop trying to make war. Bro, we do not want another war. Stop trying to now make war with Iran. Here's another comment. I work at a plant near the coast in Texas. If someone flies a drone within X amount of our air zone, the Coast Guard immediately gets involved and quickly. What's going on here? Here's another one. I love this. So you must be a lunatic to think that Iran would want to fly the drones over a few thousand kilometers to U.S. airspace. What drugs are you and Fox News smoking? All right, and then there's a bunch of comments that reference Project Blue Beam. Do you guys know what Project Blue Beam is? Anybody? Anybody? Bueller? All right, seriously, Project Blue Beam.
What if I told you that the biggest conspiracy of all time could be unfolding right before our eyes? According to some, there's a secret government plan called Project Blue Beam, and it's designed to change the world forever. Let's break it down. The theory goes like this. Powerful elites, maybe even the New World Order, want to create a single global government. To do this, they need a way to scare people into submission. And what's scarier than an alien invasion? Here's how Project Blue Beam supposedly works. Stage 1. Fake archaeological discoveries. These discoveries would rewrite history and undermine existing religions. Stage 2. Giant holograms in the sky. These holograms would show religious figures like Jesus, Buddha, or Mohammed, speaking directly to people in their own languages. The goal? To confuse and unite people under a single belief system. Stage 3. A fake alien invasion. Using advanced technology, they'd simulate UFOs attacking Earth, making us believe we need a united global government to survive. Stage 4. Mind control. They'd use radio frequencies to manipulate people's thoughts, pushing the final narrative of complete control. Does it sound far-fetched? Maybe. But think about how realistic CGI and holograms are today. Combine that with with unexplained UFO sightings and advanced tech, and it makes you wonder, could something like this really happen? The big question is why. If true, Project Bluebeam isn't about aliens or religion, it's about control. By scaring people into believing the world is ending, they could create a new world order. So what do you think? Is Project Bluebeam real, or just another wild conspiracy theory?
All right, so there's two guys that are like interviewed by everybody, and one is this guy named Dr. Stephen Greer, and then another one is this guy named Bob Lazar. So give this a listen from Stephen Greer on the Sean Ryan podcast. By the way, this Sean Ryan guy, his podcast is definitely number 1 or number 2. It might even be bigger. Some weeks it's bigger than Joe Rogan. But anyway, dude is huge. He's kind of like I think he's either an ex-FBI guy or ex-Secret Service or maybe ex-military. But anyway, really, really popular, pretty well-respected dude in the space. So give this a listen.
Whole purpose is to create sort of a global militarized totalitarian superstate of the world fighting another world. It's like War of the Worlds. Okay. And that's been a 70-year defense plan. And I know people who've seen that plan.
So basically, the theory of this whole Project Bluebeam and really what people say is fundamentally, if everything else fails and let's say there is a global ruling elite class, they're pretty much going to try to create kind of a fake War of the Worlds situation in order to unite people out of fear, in order to give control away. I will say, if there ever was a case study for how easy it is for people to relinquish their fear, think back to March 13th, 2020, and the beginning of being told not to leave your house, not to do this, not to do that. Honestly, think how easy it was to completely relinquish your freedom, especially for those of us here in the United States who pretty much, many of us, them, you, did exactly what you were told out of fear of what. Seriously, think back to wear a mask, stand 6 feet apart, don't go here, don't go there, don't do this, don't do that. Man, it was pretty easy. It was pretty easy to get people to relinquish their freedom. It really was. Come on. Even if you're like thinking, man, Ray D, you're going far-fetched with all this, you have to admit it was pretty easy to get you to do what was wanted. Okay? All right. I love this. All right, listen to this.
Fourth and final stage of Project Bluebeam is the most sinister. Serge Manasse predicts a universal supernatural manifestation with electronic means. In other words, an alien invasion. The elites will promise to unite and defend the world against our common enemy. But to do that, they'll need emergency power. But it's only temporary, so we won't resist authority. We'll beg for it.
One is to make mankind believe that an alien invasion is about to occur at every major city on Earth in order to provoke each major nation to use its nuclear weapons in order to strike back. The United Nations Court will require that all nations which launch nuclear weapons disarm when the invasion is shown to be false. And how would the United Nations know that the invasion was false? They will have staged it, of course.
All right. Anyway, Project Bluebeam. I honestly have not super dug into it, but in the whole drone situation over New Jersey, and by the way, now it looks like there's been some massive truck-sized drones over areas of California. There were so many comments about this Project Bluebeam, and then inside both TikTok and YouTube, there's other people that put other links, and it's pretty crazy how much information is out there. Now, again, I can't say I've looked at it, very much until obviously now, but maybe I'll dig in a little more and see if there's even more to bring on that. But anyway, Project Bluebeam, keep it on your radar, keep it on your burner, maybe put it on the middle burner. All right, last thing. I actually had a few people recently write me some things about my book. I have not talked about my book in a long time, mainly because I wasn't like trying to sell you guys on it. I just wrote a book, and if you want to read it, great. But anyway, I got some really nice compliments recently on the book, and it actually inspired me to take the manuscript and throw it into Notebook LM and see what comes out. So anyway, I'm gonna leave you with this. Here is a book review of Deep Shallow Dive Into You, penned by yours truly. And actually, it was pretty interesting to hear Notebook LM's take on the book. So anyway, enjoy this. Have a great weekend, and call a spade, all that jazz. Talk to you soon.
Ever feel like, I don't know about you, but I often feel like I am just drowning in information.
Oh, tell me about it.
Yeah, like you're just bombarded with news and complexity. And it's like, how am I supposed to make sense of any of this?
Right.
Well, today, we're diving into a method designed to help you navigate those, those choppy waters of just too much information.
Okay.
It's called Deep Shallow Dive.
I like it.
Yeah, and it's all about extracting meaning from, all this stuff without getting lost in the depths of it.
Yeah, and what's so fascinating about this approach is that it was actually born out of a time that I think a lot of us might remember feeling similarly overwhelmed back in March 2020 when, the world seemed to kind of shift beneath our feet.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
It was like overnight. Flatten the curve. Went from this phrase none of us had ever heard to a concept that completely upended our lives.
Right.
And I know, I was left with this lingering feeling of, okay, but what does this actually mean?
Yeah. And the author of the book we're diving into today really tapped into that exact sentiment. They recognize that to truly understand something complex, you have to be willing to go deep, right?
Yeah.
But not get so lost in the details that you lose sight of the bigger picture.
Right.
And that's the essence of Deep Shallow Dive.
So it's like finding that sweet spot between surface level awareness and, getting bogged down in minutiae.
Precisely. The author actually talks about how Steve Jobs, his famous quote, everything around you that you call life was made up by people that were no smarter than you. That became kind of a guiding principle for them. It's this reminder that if someone else can figure something out, we can too.
It's almost like demystifying knowledge in a way.
Yes.
Breaking down those barriers that make us think that certain topics are just beyond our grasp.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And while the author's journey, began with this idea of unpacking the complexities of current events, like what was happening in the world, it actually evolved into something much more personal.
That's where the you part of this Deep Shallow Dive comes in, right? It's not just about understanding the world. It's about understanding yourself better.
Exactly. The author discovered that this approach, this willingness to go deep but stay grounded, could be applied to personal growth, relationships, health, really any aspect of life you can think of.
And it all started, rather unexpectedly, with some humorous social media posts.
It's true. And interestingly enough, the author kind of jokingly declared, we were done with crazy at the start of 2023.
Oh, no.
Little did they know.
Ironic, right. It's like the universe has a sense of humor.
Right.
But on a serious note, it's so fascinating how those lighthearted observations, they resonated with so many people, and it really sparked a movement.
It did. And I think it speaks to a universal desire for clarity in a world that often feels very chaotic and overwhelming. People were really hungry for a way to make sense of things, and the author's very relatable, often humorous approach really provided a roadmap.
Totally. It's like they were putting into words what so many of us were feeling but just couldn't quite articulate ourselves. And as those social media posts kind of evolved, they eventually blossomed into something even bigger, the Deep Shallow Dive podcast.
Which is a true testament to the power of this approach and its ability to really resonate with a wide audience.
For sure.
But before we kind of delve further into the podcast itself,
okay,
let's circle back to the core of the Deep Shallow Dive methodology, because it's in those principles that the real transformation lies.
Right, because this isn't just about the author's journey. It's about how we can all apply these ideas to actually live richer, more meaningful lives.
Yes.
And to do that, we need to unpack what Deep Shallow Dive actually looks like in practice.
Exactly.
So how does one actually deep shallow dive into, life?
Right.
The book breaks it down into 4 key pillars, and I find this really interesting.
Okay.
Self-awareness,
okay,
resilience, authenticity.
Yeah.
And empathy.
Right.
It's like they create this framework, for navigating all these complexities of being human.
And what's so brilliant about it is that these pillars aren't just these abstract concepts.
Right.
The book provides really tangible ways to incorporate them into your daily life.
So, for example, when we're talking about self-awareness, it's not just about, knowing your likes and dislikes. It's about understanding your deeper motivations, your patterns.
Exactly. It's about asking yourself why you react certain ways in certain situations, and then using that knowledge to make more conscious choices.
It reminds me of something the author talks about finding those little moments of joy in everyday life, like that first sip of coffee in the morning.
Oh, yeah.
Even something that simple can be like a really powerful way to cultivate self-awareness, appreciate the present moment.
Absolutely. It's about being present in your own life. And like you're saying, recognizing those subtle but really significant details that contribute to your overall well-being.
Right.
I mean, that's deep, shallow dive in action.
Totally. Now, resilience is another big one, especially in today's world. It feels like we're constantly facing these new challenges.
Oh, absolutely. And that's where the shallow part of the deep, shallow dive can be super helpful.
Okay.
It's about not getting so bogged down in the weeds of a problem that you completely lose sight of the bigger picture.
So it's about finding that balance between acknowledging that, this is a really difficult situation.
Right.
But not letting it completely consume you.
Exactly. The author actually uses the analogy of a surfer navigating a wave. So you're acknowledging the power of the wave. In this case, it's the challenge that you're facing, but you're also trusting your ability to kind of ride it out.
Okay. I like that a lot.
Yeah.
Okay. So we've got self-awareness. We've got resilience. What about authenticity?
Yeah.
That one feels especially relevant in a world where, we're constantly bombarded with messages about who we should be.
Right. And it's about tuning out all that noise.
Right.
And really connecting with your own internal compass, your own values, your own beliefs.
And that can be tough.
Oh, it can be so tough.
Especially when you're surrounded by people who might not necessarily embrace or even understand, your authentic self.
Absolutely. It takes courage. It takes courage to be authentic, but the rewards are immeasurable.
Totally.
It's about living in alignment with your truest self.
Yes.
Even when it's uncomfortable or inconvenient.
100%. Okay, which brings us to our final pillar, and that is empathy.
Yes.
Now, this one can be a little tricky.
Yeah.
Especially when it comes to the concept of calling a spade a spade.
Right.
Which, let's be honest, sounds a little intimidating at first.
Right. And it's not about being brutally honest or confrontational just for the sake of it.
Okay.
It's about approaching those conversations, especially difficult conversations, with compassion and understanding.
And maybe even a little bit of role reversal.
Yes.
Which the author talks about in the book.
Yeah.
It's like that age-old advice about, walking a mile in someone else's shoes.
Exactly. It's about really trying to see the situation from the other person's perspective.
Yeah.
Even if you don't necessarily agree with them.
So it sounds like calling a spade is less about being right and more about fostering genuine connection and understanding.
Exactly. Creating that space for open and honest communication, even when it's difficult.
Right.
And that can be so powerful, both in our personal life and our professional life.
And speaking of powerful, the book also touches on the importance of health and well-being.
Yes.
Now, I know some people, they hear health and they immediately think, restrictive diets or grueling workout routines.
Right.
But that's not what this is about, is it?
Not at all. No. The author really emphasizes that this deep, shallow dive can be applied to creating sustainable wellness habits. It's about understanding your body's data and finding what works for you.
Yeah.
Not just blindly following, some generic plan.
It's about figuring out what works for you.
Yes.
Not trying to fit into some kind of mold.
Exactly. And the author actually uses the example of walking.
Okay.
To illustrate this point.
Okay.
It's something most of us can do.
Right.
And yet, it offers such profound benefits.
Yeah.
For both our physical and our mental health.
And it can be a great way to tap into that idea of understanding your body's data, right?
Yes.
Like, how do you feel when you actually make time for a walk? Do you feel energized, more focused, maybe a little bit more connected to, like, the world around you?
Yeah. And it's about paying attention to those really subtle shifts and using that information to make choices that really support your well-being.
You know, it strikes me that this entire deep, shallow dive approach, it's about finding that balance.
It is.
Between going deep enough to understand, like, the complexities of a situation, but then also staying shallow enough to avoid feeling totally overwhelmed by it all.
That's a great point.
Yeah.
Because it's not about becoming an expert on everything.
Right.
It's about cultivating the tools and the mindset to really navigate the world with more clarity, more purpose, and more intention.
100%. And that brings us back to you, dear listener, as you've been kind of listening to us unpack some of these ideas from Deep Shallow Dive.
Yeah.
Has there been a particular concept or idea that's really resonated with you?
Yeah, was there like a light bulb moment?
Yeah, like a light bulb moment where you thought, wow, I could really use a deep, shallow dive in this area of my life.
Yeah, absolutely.
Maybe it's a relationship that could benefit from some more open and honest communication.
Right.
Maybe it's a career path that you've been contemplating, you know, taking the leap on.
Right, or even just committing to that daily walk we were talking about.
Yes.
And turning into how that makes you feel.
Exactly. Whatever it is, I think it's important to remember that the first step is often like the hardest. Right.
It is.
But like that initial plunge, you know, into a cool lake on a hot summer day.
Oh, I love it.
The rewards can be just absolutely exhilarating.
And imagine if we all kind of embraced this deep, shallow dive approach.
Yeah.
Not just in our own personal lives, but in our interactions we have with others.
Right.
Especially, you know, in the often turbulent waters of online discourse these days.
Oh, tell me about it.
Right. What if, instead of those knee-jerk reactions and heated arguments, we approached those conversations with curiosity, with empathy, with a genuine desire to understand perspectives that are different from our own?
It's a really powerful thought, isn't it?
It is.
This idea that such a simple shift in mindset could have such a profound impact, not just on our own individual lives, but on, you know, the world around us.
True.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, we invite you to hold on to that possibility.
Yes.
Embrace those 4 pillars: self-awareness, resilience, authenticity, and empathy. And remember, you don't have to navigate this journey alone. The Deep Shallow Dive podcast awaits, ready to guide you further along your path of self-discovery.
That's right.
Be sure to check out the show notes for links to the specific episodes that we mentioned today. And until next time, happy diving.
That was a great way to end it.
This episode was brought to you by the new book, Deep Shallow Dive Into You, available now on Amazon and Barnes & Noble in hardcover and paperback. Don't forget to sign up for our new mailing list on our website at deepshallowdive.com.